It's been 8 years now since I first played Oxygen Not Included, and through all these years, I kept coming back to this game, and I would learn a new lesson every single time. Today, I want to share with you what I learned, and maybe inspire you to think more about the games that you play and appreciate them beyond their entertainment value. Lesson number 1. High concentration of CO2 makes you dumber, and Earth is on a fast track to reach those levels globally. Have you ever unwittingly locked a dupe inside a room and had them suffocate in their own carbon dioxide? In our day-to-day life, you are the dupe when you lock yourself at home and don't take regular walks. See, the window that you crack open might not be enough. A recent study found that when a room with 7 or more people faces a non-windward side, having just one window open fails to lower CO2 concentration, and only a wide open window can realistically keep it below 1000 parts per million in the longer term. The concentration that is linked to poor decision making and lower response speeds. On anecdotal level, reaching this concentration seems to be extremely easy, even with 1 or 2 people at home. Just pause this video and take a look at this. And there is this study too. The solution to this is to achieve cross-ventilation by opening several windows, preferably on opposite sides, but not every home allows that. Plus, climate researchers estimate that the concentration of CO2 might rise as high as 970 ppm by year 2100, and we'll just all be collectively dumber regardless of whether we open our windows or not. And then just give it a bit more time and we'll lose the low-level clouds too. Lesson number 2. Ozone layer is rad. Playing Oxygen Not Included made me appreciate Earth's ozone layer. Represented by space debris in the form of regolith, it protected my colony from heat and radiation until I managed to come up with my own solution, and was a stark reminder of just how vital the ozone layer is for survival of humankind. Lesson number 3. The value of education and how the world is deprived of it. Yes, we have likely all been to school, but I can bet you and I received vastly different education. Even though we might say, feel, or think that we're equal, our capacity to understand the world around us is far from equal, and I believe education plays a big part in this. Let me explain. I've always been curious and I've always loved science. In childhood, I had big encyclopedias that I would read through and through, but this was always on some abstract level that I could not comprehend. In school, I had no luxury of having engaged physics or chemistry teachers that would indulge us in experiments that would help us understand. So when I got to play this game, I felt like all the bits and pieces that I had gathered from various sources about the nature finally clicked into place. Things like gas and liquid layering, which every kid should have a chance to explore through density tower experiments at school, I only got to experience through Oxygen Not Included. Now, obviously, a snob with a STEM degree would comment under this video that the game is far from realistic, and that you should not draw conclusions about real-life physics from it. That the dupes should expel as much gas as they breathe in, that all plants need light to grow, that metal volcanoes don't exist, that the game lacks smoke and ignition, that all power generators should consume oxygen, unused power should be converted to heat, chlorine in real life is heavier than carbon dioxide, etc, etc. But that's exactly the point. We all should know that, and should be able to tell what's real and what's fiction. We learn the rules of the game to be able to play it and succeed in it, but we never really learn how to play the game of life. Most of us are winging it with no sense of direction because we never learned the most basic rules on which we should build upon, and it's no wonder the world is a mess. Lesson number 4. Closed-loop systems are fragile and infinite growth is unrealistic. Your asteroid is a sealed bubble. Earth is too. There is no such thing as infinite growth, infinite space for building, infinite resources. Your asteroid will not be there forever without the cheat codes in the form of asteroid fields, geysers, vents, and volcanoes that have endless resources, and creatures that break the laws of thermodynamics. Try playing the game without all of them and see how far you can get. That's what we have here on Earth. The only difference is that we don't get to see the consequences of our actions as quickly as we do in the game, and we can't single-handedly change course. Going back to the example with windows, we take it for granted that we can just open the window and get fresh air. Imagine the air outside becoming so toxic, so polluted that breathing it in could make you sick or take away your ability to breathe at all. This is already a reality in many cities, including those in the developed world. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, all come from a fragile web of systems where every action, every emission of carbon, every tree cut, every drop of plastic can ripple through the environment, disrupting the natural cycles that make life possible. If the air becomes toxic, it is no longer an option to open a window, and there won't be an option to vent the bad gases out and keep the good gases in, like you can in Oxygen Not Included. I've already given you existential crisis, let's talk about something lighter. Lesson number 5. There's beauty in chaos. I used to obsess over creating the perfect base, symmetrical, geometric, optimized for maximum efficiency. Every building had to be in its ideal place, every wall had to align with the walls above and below, and I'd spent hours fine-tuning the layout. But all it ever brought me was anxiety as I tried to force cubes into round holes, constantly reworking plans that never quite felt right. I never really got anywhere in the game because I was so absorbed in the meticulous planning and organizing, constantly worried about making sure my dupes weren't wasting time traveling too far. Then, I tried something different. Instead of adhering to some grand plan, I began working with the natural constraints of the world around me and allowed demand to shape my designs. The result was far more rewarding, and my colony felt more alive. This shift in thinking mirrors how some of the most beautiful cities in the world were actually created. Not through some top-down, perfectly orchestrated plan, but through the necessity of growing and adapting to the environment over time. For instance, Venice evolved from a small settlement built on marshy islands, responding to its unique geographical challenges and the need for waterways as streets. There wasn't some grand plan to make a city there. In fact, it was just a refuge for people fleeing invasions around the 5th and 6th centuries. But eventually it grew into a major city, and all the intricate canals and narrow streets that we now appreciate were born out of sheer necessity. Similarly, Paris wasn't initially designed as the iconic city we know today. It was shaped over centuries by the evolution of its neighborhoods and the necessity of dealing with things like defense, trade, and population growth. Haussmann's renovations in the mid-1800s did bring more order, but they didn't erase the city's organic growth and the layers of history embedded in its streets. These cities are beautiful because they aren't perfect. They're alive, shaped by the needs and constraints of their environments. Their beauty comes from this organic growth, where each corner, each street tells a story of adaptation and necessity rather than rigid imposed perfection. Lesson number 6. Sunk cost fallacy. If you've played Oxygen Not Included, you know what sunk cost fallacy is. It's when you've invested so much time and effort into your colony that you can't bear the thought of starting over. So, instead of calling it quits, you spend twice as much time trying to fix what's broken, even when the situation is beyond repair. Over the years, I've learned to recognize when it's time to let go, and I think this skill has actually transferred to real life. Which brings me to my next lesson, number 7. Failure isn't the end, it's a data point. Every time your colony falls apart because of a failed power grid or unmanageable food shortage, it just teaches you how to succeed next time and eventually win the game. This applies to real life too, and for me this game has been a reminder that just because some of my videos fail and aren't watched by anybody, it doesn't mean I shouldn't produce any more. No, I just have to learn from that and do better next time. Lesson number 8 is another cognitive bias called status quo bias. It's that tendency to resist change simply because change feels like too much effort for too little gain. I remember, for example, spending countless hours building hatch ranches and slickster ranches to cover my power needs, thinking volcano taming was too advanced for me, even though at that point I was more than capable of making it happen. Or take my spawn design that I learned when I was just starting the game. It was always giving me trouble by breaking and messing up the balance of oxygen and hydrogen, but because I had learned it so long ago and it was working most of the time, I didn't consider rethinking the design. And so I carried that same flawed blueprint from one colony to the next. When I finally broke free of that status quo, I could see the bigger picture and finally understood how SPOM actually works and what game mechanics make it possible. And finally, number 9 is just me learning that games can be powerful learning tools. Growing up, many adults dismissed video games as nothing more than mindless entertainment. And this narrow perspective overlooks the potential educational benefits games can offer. Personally, there have been many occasions where I found myself applying skills that I could directly trace back to the games I had played. If I had to choose just one game to demonstrate how games can teach valuable skills, it would be this one. What about you? What lessons have you learned? Let me know in the comments and check out my other videos if you liked this one.